He had been silent for years. No press conferences, no campaign stops, no Twitter rants. Just the image of a tall, quiet young man standing behind his father during photo ops, barely blinking, barely speaking. Barron Trump, 19 years old. The untouchable Trump. The one they said wasn't involved in politics. Until now. Because on a quiet Tuesday morning, Barron Trump walked out of the shadows and into a federal courthouse with a lawsuit aimed directly at Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. It wasn't over a policy. It wasn't about an election. It was about pride and power. The accusation, she damaged my reputation. She crossed the line. And just like that, America's youngest Trump became the face of a legal firestorm. Cable news lit up, blogs ignited, social media melted down. But the real story, it hadn't even started yet. She walked into the storm with her head high and her hands steady. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. A name that had already made its way through headlines, congressional hearings, and more than a few viral moments. Smart, relentless, unapologetic. To some, she was a rising star. To others, a problem they couldn't control. And now, a target. Because the moment she criticized Barron Trump on national television, the narrative shifted. Suddenly, it wasn't about the words she said, it was about who dared to say them. A black woman, an elected official, unfiltered, unbending. Was this really a case of defamation? Or was it a strategic assault on a voice they couldn't silence with power, so they tried with paperwork? What began as a lawsuit now looked like something deeper, something uglier. And in the minds of many watching, especially those who'd seen this playbook before, the question burned hot. Is this justice, or is this punishment for not knowing her place? It didn't take long. Within 48 hours, the machine was fully operational. Clips from Jasmine Crockett's past college debates, passionate speeches, even private moments recorded without her consent suddenly resurfaced. But they weren't played straight. They were cut, cropped, twisted, edited, not for truth, but for destruction. Words taken out of context, jokes turned into accusations, pauses made to look like guilt. One video was from over a decade ago. Another was from a closed-door community event never meant for broadcast. And yet, they were everywhere. Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Some had millions of views before Jasmine even saw them herself. And the comments, unhinged, angry black woman, disgrace to Congress. It wasn't just a smear campaign, it was a digital crucifixion. And the public, they weren't waiting for facts, they were already picking sides. Outside, the media was on fire. Inside the house was quiet. A small living room just outside Abilene, Texas. The furniture was modest. The silence was heavy. Jasmine sat on the old couch beside her father, knees pulled up, tea cooling in her hands. They hadn't spoken for a while. The television was off. He finally broke the silence. "You sure about this, baby girl?" She didn't answer right away. She stared at the window, watched a bird land on the fence. Then she whispered, "Why is it always a fight? Why does it take a fight before people actually pay attention?" Her father leaned back, eyes tired but sharp. Because the truth don't move, unless you push it. She let those words sink in. The world outside was calling her names, editing her past, daring her to fall apart. But in that quiet little room, something in her stayed whole. Because Jasmine Crockett had never been afraid of fire. She just hated that she always had to walk through it alone. The message didn't come through official channels. No press, no lawyers, no PR teams. Just a private number. And 5 words sent through a secure app, "I need to speak," privately. It landed on the phone of Marcia Tillman, Jasmine's attorney, at 11:42 p.m. At first she ignored it. Spam, maybe. Another threat, possibly. But something about the phrasing made her pause. The next night she answered. The voice on the other end was calm, older, controlled. "My name is Garrett Wynn. I used to run communications strategy. Trump, Biden, I've seen both sides." Marcia didn't say anything. Then came the words that made her sit up straight. "I know what they're doing to her, and I have proof." He didn't ask for money, he didn't want fame. "I don't want anything except to not feel like a coward anymore." His voice cracked just once, and that's when Marcia knew this wasn't a trap, it was a confession. Garrett didn't speak in guesses, he spoke in dates, names, files. And then he sent it, a PDF file, 3 pages, labeled in all caps, "Strategic Public Retaliation." At the top, Barron Trump's digital signature, dated 3 weeks before Jasmine ever went on air. Inside, Target rep Jasmine Crockett, language to use, unhinged, obsessed, threat to democracy. Platform strategy, Twitter, TikTok, influencer loops, media partners listed, timeline detailed to the day. It wasn't a reaction, it was a blueprint. This lawsuit wasn't about defamation. It was the second phase of an attack, and Jasmine was never supposed to survive it. Marcia Tillman reread the file 3 times. Each time her stomach sank deeper. Theo, Jasmine's chief of staff, slammed his fist on the table. "This isn't spin. This is a political hit job signed, sealed, and scheduled." Everyone fell silent, even Jasmine, because no one expected Barron Trump, the so-called silent one, to be this calculated. It was 9:07 a.m. when he entered the courtroom. All eyes turned. Garrett Wynn, the ghost behind the headlines, now stood in full view, every camera trained on his face. He didn't flinch. He walked to the witness stand, raised his right hand, swore the oath, and then he spoke. Yes, Barron Trump signed off on the plan to destroy her. 9 seconds, that's all it took. 9 seconds that blew the case wide open, crushed the media narrative, and punched a hole straight through the lie that this was just a defamation suit. The courtroom didn't gasp. It froze. Jaws locked. Pens stopped. Aides stopped typing. Even the judge paused before scribbling a single word. Because what had been suggested was now confirmed. Not opinion, not speculation, but fact spoken under oath. And the most damning part, Barron didn't deny it. He wasn't even in the room. The courtroom had gone still. But the internet, it exploded. Within 30 minutes of Garrett's testimony, screenshots of his words spread across every platform. Truth Ain't Defamation hit trending #1 in 12 states. By noon, it was trending globally. TikTok creators were already stitching reaction videos. Twitter was a wildfire of outrage. YouTube live streams hit record numbers. She was telling the truth the whole time. He set her up. She didn't fall for it. They tried to bury her. Instead, they planted her. Journalists who had stayed silent suddenly found their voices. Editorials were pulled. Op-eds rewritten. Even right-wing hosts paused, some shifting tone, others going completely silent. Because the narrative had cracked. And through that crack, the truth came pouring in. It wasn't Jasmine Crockett who was on trial anymore, it was the system. Judge Kaplan leaned forward, glasses low on her nose, scanning the memo that had just detonated her courtroom. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She just read. 1 page, then another, then the third. Then she closed the file slowly and looked up. The court acknowledges the submitted document. It will be entered into the record. Silence. The kind of silence that feels loud. On the plaintiff's side, Barron Trump's legal team suddenly looked much smaller. Theodore Langham, the high-powered attorney with the smooth voice and expensive tie, cleared his throat. Once, twice. "Your Honor, We respectfully request time to conduct independent verification." Kaplan didn't smile, she didn't frown, she simply replied, "You'll have it, but the record will stand for now." Translation: "The bomb has landed, and no amount of stalling will make it disappear." He vanished. No press release, no post on Truth Social, not even a blurry photo leaving the courthouse. Barron Trump was just gone. Reporters camped outside his legal office for 2 days. Nothing. Paparazzi circled Mar-a-Lago like vultures. Still nothing. Even Fox News got tired of waiting. And behind the gold doors of Mar-a-Lago, the silence did not mean peace. It meant rage. Inside the sunlit patio, Barron sat across from his father, tense, pale, quiet. Donald Trump lit a cigar, looked away, then spoke without turning, "You gave her the microphone." Barron clenched his jaw. "I just wanted her to shut up." His father finally turned to face him. "That's not how the game works. You don't silence a congresswoman by suing her, not unless you're holding all the cards." Barron didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. The strategy had collapsed. The stage had flipped. And now the Trump name wasn't crushing the media, it was choking on it. There was no press conference, no grand victory speech, no flashy interview with primetime news. Jasmine Crockett didn't want headlines. She wanted quiet. Not for herself, but for the people who actually needed to hear what she had to say. So instead of going to Washington or sitting across from Anderson Cooper, she boarded a morning flight to Las Cruces, New Mexico alone, and walked into a high school gymnasium filled with teenagers who didn't care about politics, just life. She didn't bring notes, she didn't wear a designer suit, she didn't even mention the trial. But when one student raised their hand and asked, "Were you scared?" she paused, then said calmly, "You don't have to be perfect to stand your ground. You just have to know why you're standing." The room didn't clap. They didn't need to. They just listened. He didn't take a victory lap. No talk shows, no interviews, no podcast circuit. Garrett Wynn simply disappeared. No one knew where he went. No one even knew what he looked like beyond the courtroom sketches. And yet his absence spoke louder than most people's presence. 2 weeks later, an op-ed quietly appeared in The Atlantic written under his name. It was short, simple, no mention of Trump, no mention of Crockett. Just a reflection, a warning, and one line that burned itself into memory. Truth costs more than silence, but it lasts longer too. He didn't ask to be remembered, but now he couldn't be forgotten. What started as one lawsuit sparked something bigger than any courtroom could contain. In the weeks that followed, 3 other members of Congress, 3 women, 1 LGBTQ+, stepped forward. All had faced similar lawsuits. All had stayed silent until now. They called it what it was, lawfare, the weaponization of the legal system to punish speech, to bury dissent, to scare the brave. C-SPAN aired hearings, journalists investigated deeper. And on college campuses across the country, professors rewrote their curriculum. Crockett versus Trump wasn't just a case anymore. It was a case study. At Yale, at Howard, at Georgetown, law professors used it to explain what happens when power tries to wear a mask made of process. Because suppression doesn't always look like a fist. Sometimes it looks like a lawsuit. But now people were watching and speaking, not just louder, but smarter. A new kind of courage was rising. In the end, it wasn't about who won. It was about who stood up and who tried to shut them down. And when a young black congresswoman refused to fold, refused to flinch, and faced down one of the most powerful names in America, she didn't just speak truth, she made it undeniable. So now the question isn't about Jasmine Crockett, the question is about us. If a black woman can risk everything to speak up, then why are the rest of us still staying silent? And the lesson, one that should echo in every courtroom, newsroom, classroom, and home. No one should be sued for telling the truth. Not in America. Not anywhere. Because truth may cost more than silence. But once spoken, it can never be unheard. The truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it walks in quietly, wearing the face of courage. This story reminds us that speaking up isn't always safe. It's rarely easy, but it is necessary. Jasmine Crockett didn't just defend herself, she defended every voice that has ever been told to sit down, shut up, and stay in their place. In a world where power often tries to weaponize the law, our silence becomes permission. So the next time you witness injustice, ask yourself, am I being quiet because it's safe or because it's right? If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, or opened your eyes to something you didn't see before, subscribe to the channel, because here we don't just tell stories, we stand with the voices that refuse to be silenced. Hit that button, join the movement. Truth deserves witnesses.